Welcome to my couch. This is an Educator talk show. If you can dream it, you can do it. So today's episode is going to be super excited because we have a very special guest today. He is one of the most anticipated academic professional in the education industry in Sri Lanka. So he is a doctor by profession, holding an MBBS, and has dedicated his entire life in building a higher network of high quality educational institutions across the island. And also, he is also the architect of setting up the TISSL. What is TISSL? The International Schools. So now welcoming our guest, the chairman of Gateway Group of International, Dr. Harsha Alles. Good morning, doctor. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm all right, thank you.
Doctor, we all know your father was a very prominent figure in Sri Lanka. So what is like to grow up as the son of the famous and legendary Mr. R.I.T. Alles?
Okay, tough question to begin with.
Starting.
Because I think I have had a kind of a total experience under Mr. R.I.T. Alles, who is my father. First as his second son, and then as a student of the school that he built, and then taking over another school that he founded. So as the second son, I think I must say I couldn't have had a better father, an example in everything that he did. He didn't partake any alcohol, no gambling, everything was the family. And being a principal and a teacher, I think it was tough for them, but I think he gave his 100% to the family. So that is something that I learned. And thereafter, I still remember, when I started schooling, he was abroad and my mother was teaching at Royal College. So she enrolled me to Royal College, even though DS Lanka had been just started. And I think DS started in 1967. I started schooling in 69. So when my father returned from Cambridge, he was very disappointed that I had been enrolled at Royal College. And he had, a few conversations with me. And one day he told me, Puta, if my school is not good enough for my son, how could it be good for others? Would you like to change? I said yes. And at year 5, I shifted from Royal to DS. And I still remember moving from that red brick buildings to a Kajan shed, which was my first classroom at DS. And thereafter, I grew up as a student in a school where he was the principal. And he made it a point that, again, as a principal, that he'll set the standards. So I had very little space for any kind of error. But on the other hand, I also had the responsibility of living up to his expectations in everything that I did, be it academics or co-curricular or for that matter discipline. I still remember one day when I was reprimanded in school by him, and those days reprimanding was done in a different manner, for not taking an excuse letter from home when I was absent from school. So that was that. And thereafter, when he started Gateway, I was a medical student, but I'm happy from day one I have been able to work with him and kind of develop the organization, probably playing a very supportive role. And later on, obviously, when he had to slow down, I had to take over the reins. But I think all in all, my father, I think, is a very well-known educator. And I always knew that fitting into his shoes will be very challenging. But I tried my best. But I also thought that, he came from a state school background, and the values and the culture that he brought in, everything was so rich But I also had to not just follow that, make sure that I carry those values forward, but at the same time, shape the organization to meet future challenges, bring in technology and do whatever developments that had to take place. So, probably fitting into his shoes has been challenging, but all that I can say is that I've tried my best.
Thank you, Doctor. So the next question about your family. So what kind of support from your mother, family, and especially your wife, what's their contribution?
See, my father is the one who is known to the world, but my mother, who is also an educator, she was a teacher and the founder vice principal of President's College, and obviously worked at Gateway as the managing director. She was the stronger person. My father was in fact a very soft person. Yes, I think she proved herself, especially whenever the family faced any calamities. I still remember when my younger brother died, we all were really down. But it is she who kind of, steered the ship and make sure that we got over that situation, because it was a complete shock to all of us. So she's been always a very strong person, played a massive supportive role to my father in all that he did, and also very strong in certain values, discipline, which I think we've kind of got from her very much. And I think she's had a major influence on the sons, especially in that aspect. Well, my wife, I must tell you, has been very supportive in everything that I did and what I'm doing even now. She was a teacher to begin with, and she went in for early retirement, but she didn't have any retirement because she joined Gateway. And I generally work 24/7, and basically I'm always trying out new things, whatever. And if I didn't have that understanding and support from her, I couldn't have done half of this. So that way she's been very supportive, and I can't have any complaints about my support from the family. Rest of the family, my younger brother left us when he was only 17 plus. So I think as the remaining two sons, me and my elder brother had more responsibilities. And my elder brother, I think our personalities are different, but we have a very deep connection, especially again when there is any kind of difficulty. And I know that he'll be there for me and I'll be there for him, especially at times of difficulty. So superficially, we may not be the people who will be seen to be real buddies, but deep inside I think we have a strong relationship.
So you have a very cherished family, Doctor. So the Doctor, now you have studied medicine as your first degree. So now you are pursuing a completely different field. So to tell us how important is for a person to choose their first degree. What's your opinion?
I think in today's context, first degree is immaterial. And I think children should be given the freedom to simply select what they like. But going back to my medical days, basically when we were students, if there were professions which were kind of hopefully acceptable to society, they were either medicine, engineering or law. So very little choice. And in fact, I liked medicine, I must tell you. And the group of friends that I had all opted to do medicine. So we simply got carried away and we all did medicine. I'm, I think, the only one out of medicine now, but they are doing very well, the others, all are consultants. So basically, I think when I started doing medicine, I had a very little idea, but later on it grew. So somehow towards the latter part, again, there was social issues in the country. Universities were closed for 3 years. So that time I got even more involved with Gateway, and I had a serious problem in getting out of it because I had to complete my degree. And thereafter I did my internship in Anuradhapura, I remember. Then I joined the medical faculty and I was a lecturer there. I did my Ph.D. while I was in the medical school. So I probably got a total experience of medicine and being an academic as well. So I think I liked that profession, but later on in my career in medicine, I realized that if you are to be a medic or an academic, you can't be doing anything else. You got to be totally committed. And if you cannot give that commitment, I think it's good to walk away. Because, even in the latter part of my career as a lecturer at the Colombo Medical School, I had only 2 lectures a week. I could have easily done that and somehow carried on further. But back in the year 2000, I realized that I was not doing justice to my academic work or research, as well as the work at Gateway. So that's the time I had to take a call. So looking back, no regrets. I still remember doing my internship in Anuradhapura, which was a very tough place, especially during the war. I remember I worked in the surgical ward. But still, because I was in Anuradhapura and completely out of Colombo, and because I was away from Gateway that time, it was a total commitment and I really enjoyed. Okay, so that's what was available and I took it at that time.
So the dedication and commitment of you is the most important.
It's important.
Yes.
It's important.
And Doctor, what do you think? How important is school education for children? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I feel school is the most important place for a child next to home. Any child would kind of spend at least about 13 years in a school. Okay, and the research shows that most amount of learning takes place when they are, when they are in their first probably 7-8 years of their life. Okay, and much of it is spent in school as well. Okay, kindergarten, school, whatever. And school is a place where you learn all the skills, right? And it is sad now, if you take the corporates or the business world, they all, work so much with universities and try to kind of really change the mindset of students of the universities and do whatnot. But little do we realize, university would be only 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and all the values, the necessary discipline, all that has to be inculcated in school. Okay, so to me, school has to be that place which shouldn't be like a tutory. Okay, it can't be just concentrating on academics. Sadly, that's how the schools are going now, because schools should prepare for university as well as life. Okay, so today, if you take broadly, I'm just making a general comment. You look at different schools, state schools or private schools or international schools, you'll see some schools just being concentrating on university. Their total concentration is examination results and sending them to a university. There are some schools which are not very, concerned about academics, but very good in sports and co-curricular activities. Okay, so their main concentration is probably about big matches and whatnot. Okay, but we want to do both. I think it's important that you kind of look into both aspects.
Thank you very much. So this is the end of our first segment. So we are moving on to the second segment of today's show. It's all about present and future. So when we talk about Gateway International, how did Gateway International School came into being?
Okay, I told you my father started DES, and after some time he was moved out of DES for reasons unknown, and then he had a short stint at even Zaira College as the director of studies. There also, I think he did some good work. And later on, there was a little lull period where, he was completely out of everything, and the family didn't have any income. And he then, was forced to start something on his own. And he started what was called Gateway Institute of Advanced Studies back in 1986. That was, in effect, a tutoring. But that also he did it in a different way, small classes, parents meetings, uniform and whatnot. So we went on like that. Later on, I think my father was recalled to DES while Gateway Institute of Advanced Studies was going on. I was studying medicine. My mother was also working. So none of us were there full time. But around 1995, he retired because he by that time had become the state secretary for education also. So he retired from that. I had graduated, and my mother also had retired. So around 1997, we thought we must start a school. So that's how we started Gateway International School back in 1997. But then we were in a converted house where Gateway Institute of Advanced Studies was there. So we had to start from there and develop the organization to where it is now.
Interesting. So, Doctor, we all know that Sinhalese is our native language. So, English is a must. It's kind of a second language. So, how important is learning the English language and the entry to international schools? I mean, international education for Sri Lanka.
See, we need to kind of understand reality. I mean, English is spoken all over the world, and basically, if you take all modern tools, whether it's a web or whatever kind of communication tools available, much of it is in English. And moment you go out to the business world, everything is in English. So we can't live in isolation. Having said that, Sinhala is a beautiful language. Tamil is considered to be a beautiful language. Unfortunately, we haven't learnt that enough. Okay, I think we must do our very best to kind of preserve that. Okay, and learn those languages also to the maximum. But I think it's nothing but fair that children are given that exposure to learn English, to communicate. Okay, it's okay even if they make mistakes. I mean, world around, if you look, there are many countries where people speak the so-called broken English, but they still speak English. Okay, so that's important. And I don't think it should be limited to just a segment like the international schools, but I think you got to broad base it.
So, Gateway as a pioneer school in learning international education. So, how did we all know that pandemic has exacerbated all over the regions, countries. So, how did the pandemic situation, physical education, transforming physical education to e-learning platform? So, how did Gateway as a pioneer school face those challenges, pandemic challenges?
See, in general, I must tell you, me and my team, we like to be a step ahead. We try our very best, okay, in our own humble way, and prepare and anticipate things. Not that we ever anticipated a pandemic, but we knew the learning was taking a different direction, and in that, bringing in technology for education was very important. So long before the pandemic, we had started doing this. And we were the only Microsoft showcase schools in Sri Lanka. There were at that time about 225 in the entire world. So we were the only one in Sri Lanka when the pandemic hit us. So already we had kind of started using Teams, but it wasn't the case where everyone was using Teams. It was only a selected few. So I still remember 12th of March when this was going on, I called the Secretary of Education and asked him, are you planning to start close schools? And he said, yes, from tomorrow we'll be closing. So immediately I was in Colombo. Okay. Immediately I summoned a meeting of the entire staff in Colombo and had a brainstorming session. And everyone unanimously said, let's go for Microsoft Teams. And at that point, I think, especially in our country, a good majority didn't know what Teams was. For that matter, not even online learning, but most of our staff, they knew. So we had that discussion, but then I said, I still remember, it can't be done by just a few. I want our entire 550 teachers, entire staff to be engaged in online teaching and learning. So that was a challenge. So from that day, within a week, we had day and night training sessions and got everyone up to speed. And from the following week, we started online teaching. So we didn't waste much time. Okay. Then came the challenge of data and devices, because some parents were complaining, saying that they were not having devices. Then even some teachers had problems. So teachers, we were able to send our own computers to their places in case they didn't have, and they also had issues in the data. So interesting times. I spoke to Supun, the head of Dialogue, and asked him to work out a package for the Gateway community. He was very helpful and gave us an attractive package. Okay, and basically then we spoke to the entire organization, teachers, students, and said, okay, Dialogue for a very special rate will come and install, okay, their kind of routers if you want to take. So there was a huge demand. Over 1,000 people requested, and they went to their homes and kind of set up the routers, and they were all fine with connectivity and data, right? And we worked out a very attractive data package as well. Then I think even the school chipped in a little. Then came the devices. Now that was a more difficult thing. So I spoke to Hewlett Packard Singapore and got again a special rate. And the laptops, I said, no, you have to deliver. So because people couldn't go out, right? So anyone who wanted a laptop, we were able to deliver them to their residences. And also with credit card companies, I think with about 2 or 3 companies, we worked out 24 installments, no interest, to pay for the laptop. So within a few weeks, I think the entire Gateway community was, really doing a super job. Then came the decision, okay, should it be just lessons only? We said, no, we need the whole school, wholesome school experience, okay, because this happened in March. April, we usually have our Aurudu celebrations, and May, we used to have Vesak celebrations. So we then kind of had virtual Aurudu. We had virtual Vesak. I remember still the then Minister of Education liked it so much, he even put some of the material in the Ministry of Education website. And then we later had virtual carols, right? Then the sports department was without work, okay? And so in Microsoft, there is this program where you could record, right, and share. So what each sports person, the trainers were trained to use this, and students were asked, you give a little exercise or a skill to learn, they have to do it at home, record it and upload it. So the coach looks at and says, okay, you need to do this differently, that differently. Above all the other students were also able to see this and learn from mistakes. So we had a fantastic online program, so much so that when school started, there were times where basically it was a little risky because pandemic was not really over, okay. There was a huge demand from parents, no, please don't continue your online program. But we have told everyone very clearly, physical school will never be a substitute for online. Online is okay for temporary work, okay, but nothing like physical school. So every opportunity we had, we got back to physical school, and I think that's our success at Gateway.
So Gateway got the challenge, and Gateway faced the pandemic as the positive way.
Very good. I think pandemic has done a lot of good in many ways. To me, the best that has happened is there was a huge gap between the teacher and the student, because students are very quick to grasp technology. Teachers, take time, and this made it possible for teachers to come down to the level of the students, right? And I think when all were on the same platform, that has become, interaction has become very good. So pandemic has done a lot of good. As long as we are able to carry forward those messages, that is what is important.
When you're talking about technological advancements, so what technological advancements in education do you foresee? I mean, in generally.
See, like technology will continue to kind of offer new things. Okay, people have been talking about online school. Okay, for even before the pandemic, and now that discussion has got to a new height, and people are kind of even opening online schools or whatever. So technology is always a tool. There's no doubt about that. But we have to understand that, physical activity, physical interaction simply does not happen, if you have anything online. Okay, I mean, so whatever you do, I think technology will advance, bring in new tools. I mean, you are talking about augmented reality, virtual reality, all that is very good, right? But not at the expense of, compromising physical education. So to me, education will, have more and more features coming from technology, which is good. You need to have them, you need to embrace them. But don't ever think that, the human face can be taken out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And final question for the second segment. So in this pandemic era, Doctor, what new skills do students need to acquire to face the challenge of the future? So what do you think?
I mean, pandemic was just a phase, but overall, I think moving forward, I think education itself and learning itself has to be taught in a different manner. In the sense, I think people may call it 21st century skills. Some, even Microsoft has, so many C's, such as communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking. All these are important, right? All these are important because I think academically the knowledge and the exam results, I would say, would be important. You can't do away overnight, okay? But I think what people have to understand is that overall development. There is no point in having all the academic qualifications if you haven't got that other aspect of, where you have developed your personality. And that comes from sports, co-curricular activities. So all that is very, very important. So the skills that the children would need would be, unfortunately, many skills of it are not in the textbooks. Okay, I mean, good example is Gateway has started a program called the Founders Award, because our founder, Ms. Alles, believed in that rounded education. So we brought in this program where the Founders Award is not an exam. It's something that they have to complete while they are in the A-level class. Okay, you can complete the entire thing within 14 months. And that has 4 aspects: volunteering, internship, skills and sports, and adventure. So we refer it to as visa. So volunteering, they have to go and work in places, help people. They can even help a younger student. Internship, whatever field that they like, they must go and do a short internship. They all can be done during school vacations. Okay, so they have 4 school vacations that they can work. Skills and sport, they can learn a new skill, maybe playing an instrument. Okay, and sport, trying out a sport that they had not played before. An adventure, the entire batch goes on an overnight expedition. So they have to complete the program for them to graduate from Gateway. Okay, now these are things, unfortunately, that are not there in the textbooks. Okay, then other things like soft skills, right? And where do we teach children? But especially with your experience, okay, in working with working in international forums, meeting people, how important those things are. Okay, where do we kind of teach children about dining etiquette? Okay, how to dress. Now all that we have done through a program where we do during the secondary school. Okay, how to dress, dining etiquette, everything. Now these are things that have to be given by a school. And as I mentioned, they have to be taught, I mean, obviously they have to communicate well. So that's important, whatever language they communicate with, okay? The politeness, the professionalism is important. Then you cannot work as individuals in this world. You have to collaborate, right? More you collaborate, the better it would be, okay? And you have to think out of the box, okay? I mean, if you are just a traditional thinker, I'm telling you even about Gateway, right? I think that's our success. We try our very best to think and do things out of the box, okay? And of course, critical thinking to make right decisions at the right time. Take risks. Okay? Sri Lankans are very scared to take risks, but you have to take risks in life, okay? I mean, 9 times it will work, once it may go wrong, but that's fine. So that's the kind of preparation I think that the children would need.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So we got some very good inputs and very interesting segment. So this is the end of the second segment. We are moving on to the third segment. This is my favorite segment. So in this poll, you can choose some interesting, we have some interesting questions there. So you can pick some of the questions, but you can't see it. I'll read you the questions.
Okay.
Okay, Doctor, so your first question. So you have to answer with the first thought that comes to your mind, Doctor.
All right.
So that's the challenge. So your first question is, what did you want to be when you were small?
Well, I have no answer for that. I must be honest, I never had any plans of a career or a particular profession. And even now, I don't plan for probably 10-20 years, but I plan short term. Maybe I'll have a broader plan. But when I was young, I never dreamt of being a doctor or an educator, but possibly education was in my genes.
So now we are moving to the second question.
Okay.
So second question, Doctor, who is your biggest inspiration?
That of course I must confess that it's my father. I mean, he's been my biggest inspiration, and from very young days I've learned, I've admired things he did. So if I have to name one person, I can't think of anyone else.
So the third question. Right. So the third question. Name one thing you would like to change about Sri Lanka.
Good. Sri Lanka, I think, is a blessed place. But I think we got to think and act differently. We got to get out of this colonial mentality. We have to believe in ourselves. So I would like Sri Lanka to think differently, have confidence, and just do what you think is right to do in the most honest manner, but just don't be followers, be thinkers.
And the next question. We have to move. Right. The next question is, what motivates you continue your career?
I think every day I could try out something new, try out something different, and I think that is the biggest motivation I have. And in education, you can do so much as long as you're committed to your task. What I think, sorry to say this, I'm just always, sometimes I think, okay, what it would have been if I was a medic. I feel I would have been confined to a box. Okay, but here, every day is a new day, and every day is a day that you could look forward to. So that's what I love in this career.
Thank you, Doctor. So last but not least, a final question. Right, final question. What is your favorite game or sport to watch and play?
Well, cricket is the sport I played the most when I was at DS. and I played for medical school as well. Didn't continue thereafter, but that's a sport I love, and I always try to watch. My younger brother was a brilliant cricketer. My good friend Aravind, I think, has had a major influence. So I think cricket is the most popular sport and the sport that I love.
Okay, that was the interesting segment for today's show. Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you for valuable time and amid your busy schedules, you joining with us with a very short period. And thank you very much once again, Doctor.
Thank you very much. It's been nice talking to you.
Thank you, Doctor.
I wish this program every success. I think from what I have heard and read, it's going to be something very useful for the young people. I think they all need direction, and they all have to find purpose in what they do. And I'm sure it would be programs of this nature that would assist them.
Thank you, Doctor. So this is the wrap up for our today's show. Stay tuned with us. This is an Educator talk show.